How's it going, everybody? This is Let's Talk Real Estate with Mark and Terry. I'm Mark Snipe from Coldwell Banker.
I'm Terry Carpenter with Coldwell Banker, Howard Perry in Walston as well. Good to have you. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're here to talk about 5 things every new home buyer should know.
Yeah, so as we know, why don't we just kind of give a quick overview of the market
Okay.
and kind of what people should think about and what they would be running into, and then kind of go into our 5 tips.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So we're here in the Triangle area. Our office is in Cary, but we service Durham, Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Cary, Apex, all the surrounding area. And right now, the market it's a good market for buyers and sellers. It's a little tough just because we have high interest rates, not a ton of inventory on the market, but there is a property out there for people who want to find something.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, there's still people buying and selling real estate.
Yep.
Life changes. People investing still. Lots
Right.
of new industries coming to the area. So, I mean, when people ask you how the market's going, it's going. It's going really, really hot right now,
Right.
especially in this area.
And there's a lot of new construction that's coming on board.
That's right.
So there's always going to be opportunity, and because the interest rates are where they are, it's just a matter of finding the right property.
That's
It's
right.
just not as easy as coming in, boom, 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 and finding something. There's diligence that's required, and there's a lot of legwork to find the right property, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's about being prepared.
Right.
Knowing what you're looking for, knowing what you can afford, those kind of things. But just always, being ahead of what to expect.
Right.
And knowing the process and things like that.
Okay. So that's a great segue into, we have 5. I think we've uncovered more than 5.
Yes,
right?
we have.
And I don't think we're going to try to narrow it down because there are more than 5 things but that's kind of what we titled it. But there are more than 5 things that will help first-time homebuyers in this journey, in this process.
Yep.
Right?
That's
agree?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could go on and on and on. We just wanted to narrow it down to, the 5 things that we felt like, were most important. We may do another video with 5 more.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, Terry, before we kind of launch into that, we should say we're here in Cary at Esteemed Coffee, which is not only a great coffee shop, but it's a great mission where they employ differently abled people in an environment, and it's a not-for-profit that is raising funds to support that.
Yes, they're here for to help disabled people with jobs, and it's just a great mission that we're proud to support by being here today.
Yeah, great. All right, so where do you want to start? Do you want to start with one of yours?
Sure, we can start with one of mine. I think I'll start with one of the things I said. Right, one of the things that I feel like with anything you do is being prepared. Knowing what it is that you're looking for in the home, your criteria, your whys, your whats. Is it a new job? Is it more kids? Or are you downsizing? What's going on in your life that you need to make this move for, and be prepared for that.
And along those lines, I feel as though it's kind of know your whats and your needs, or your wants and your needs, right?
Yep, that's right.
And you want to differentiate them, because your needs are your deal breakers, and your wants are things that are nice to have. Like, I guess it would be nice to have an azalea garden.
Yeah, screen-in porch, right? I mean, it doesn't always. You can build it later,
right? Right.
That's a want. It's not. It's not something that you got to necessarily have today.
Right. A need, I guess, could be, well, I need proximity to expressways or highways, or amenities, or I don't know. I think a need could be, I want a roof that has been. There's plenty of things that could be needs,
right?
And there are plenty of things that could be wants. But what is important is that when you start the journey, is that you clearly define what are wants and what are needs, because that'll help you in the process.
Right.
And it'll help you narrow down the amount of properties that you're going to look at to nail down what that perfect property is.
Right. One thing I heard this week was we need 3 bedrooms on the same floor. I thought that was interesting, but
Right.
as parents, they wanted the 2 kids to be on the same floor as them.
Okay.
So that was interesting, right? So that
Yeah.
was something, and so I get that, right?
Right.
We're going to drive their looking, their search
Process. Yeah.
in that direction. So
And you talk about bedrooms on the first floor, especially as people get older and mature.
right,
There's a desire to have a bedroom on the first floor, so you don't have to navigate stairs.
correct,
So that would be an example of a need,
exactly.
right?
So have that list, have those things, what are important for you and your family and your circumstance, right? So
Right.
that's my number one thing.
Okay.
Be prepared.
And I think along the lines of being prepared, my first or second thing would be get in touch with a mortgage broker and get prepared from that perspective so that you know how much you can afford,
Right.
that you can get pre-approved, and that you're organized and that you have all the paperwork that is necessary so that when you start to go out, you know what you can afford. And I think that makes it easier on everybody to just know what your firepower is.
Right.
And I think we've come across a lot of people don't know what they can afford.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you can afford a Porsche, you go buy a Porsche. If you can't, you go buy a Honda. So you kind of need to know what you can afford, and that kind of sets a boundary. And I will tell you, it takes a lot more money than you think. I mean, when you go to buy a home, there's not only you got to think about your mortgage costs, you're going to have to think about your insurance and the taxes, and there's closing costs involved when you go to buy a home, initially. So there's lots. You got to have more money than you think. So it's really important, to Mark's point, to have a really good mortgage lender that you can talk to and ask questions and trust to help you with the money process and getting pre-approved.
Right. And along those lines, there's money that gets spent along the way. So you're going to have inspections, you're going
Right.
to do a survey, you're going to have some expenses along the way as a part of the due diligence process that you'll have to keep in mind. And Terry talked about closing costs. Kind of benchmarks for closing costs are about 2 to 6% of the mortgage. So you want to keep that in mind when you're thinking about the price or cost of a home that you can afford. And then in general, annually, what you would spend on a house can be between 1 to 3% of the home value. So it's another thing just to keep in
Right.
mind as you consider what it is that you can afford.
Right.
And so,
And a good lender, a good financial advisor, all those things come in handy
right.
to help you with that.
So I think getting a mortgage broker and having a relationship with a good one, preferably one that's local to the area, so that you could reach out, call them, know where they are, and that they know the market here, because we are an earnest money due diligence market, which is different from other places around the country.
And that
So-
makes the timing really important. So
Right.
that when you're dealing with a local person, this local knowledge about the local market, they have local appraisers. They know the importance of a timeline that we have in North Carolina.
Right. So, all right, number 3. What do we think? What do you think is another thing?
Back to kind of like being prepared, but you also kind of need to know the overall process that it takes to buy a home in North Carolina, whether it's new construction. It's normally a 6 to 8 month build time for new construction homes. If you're buying a resale home, there's a timeline, 20, 30, 40 days to close on a home. Know the general process, due diligence, like Mark mentioned before, this North Carolina. We typically have a due diligence fee that is signals to the seller that we're going to, take the home off the market. We're going to do our due diligence, do inspections, and kind of see how the house is and the condition of the house. And then, after that, it kind of goes to the closing, or to the settlement, to the closing. So there's a process that's involved.
Right. You want to work with a realtor that will explain that and then shepherd you through each step and get you prepared for each step, because each step along the way requires another set of tasks. And so you just want to be informed, and you want somebody to help you through that process, who's organized, has their own process, to make your process that much more seamless
Right.
and painless,
Right.
right? And you want it to be smooth. And so working with somebody who has a system is helpful.
Absolutely. It's a cumbersome process.
Lots of
It's
paperwork.
lots of paperwork to do it correctly. So yeah, working with a great expert with local knowledge, again, that's important.
Right.
Will help you, be successful. But knowing the process, working with someone that knows the process as well, to me is a big key.
Right. I agree. I agree. And as a part of that process, I'm just going to jump into
Sure.
something else that I think is important for first-time home buyers. Is it's very emotional. It's a very emotional process, and people can, because there's so much money that is at stake, and it is generally the largest purchase that a person or a couple will make. It can it can leave the bounds of kind of strict logic, and it can become emotional. And
Right.
so I think people that are aware of that, and especially realtors, you want a realtor who can help you through that process and understand and be empathetic, because I think that's a big piece that I don't think people really take into account.
Right.
And even though I don't know if you can hear the train going through, but
Choo choo.
yeah, but it's a very much of a business financial transaction, but there's also emotions involved, and I think that everybody needs to be aware of that, and those emotions need to be managed, because it can be frustrating at times. You could put an offer in, you could put multiple offers in or multiple properties and continue to lose, but you always want to take a lesson from each
From each transaction.
yeah each transaction, or each offer.
Right.
And so I also think people think there's a perfect house out there, and while we like to say we'll find you the perfect home, nothing is perfect, and that's why the wants and needs are so important,
Right.
because that'll help delineate things when you're looking as to what a good property is, because you
Right.
really want good. You don't want the perfect to be the enemy of good, and I
Mhm.
think that's important.
It helps you focus, right? I
Right.
mean, at the end of the day, this is business, right? This is about money.
Hmm.
I mean, there's lots of emotions running high.
Right.
There's lots of things going on, and behind the scenes, a lot of times,
Right.
you just got to take the emotion out of it at the end of the day. And this is a business, and you try to get through a transaction.
Right.
But to your point, you focus on what's the most important.
Right. And also, along that point, it's not a rejection of the buyer, of
Correct.
that person.
Correct.
It's the offer. So you want to separate those two things.
It's not personal.
Right. It's not personal.
Not personal. This is
It's
business.
It is
I mean,
business.
it's about money.
Yeah.
And the seller's trying to get as much money as they can. The buyer's trying to save as much money as they can.
Right.
So, just got to keep that in perspective.
Right.
For sure.
So, what do you think? What's another point that you?
So my other things, one of the other things I feel like is important is you always hear stories about other people's experiences in the past. That's the past.
Right.
Today's today. The market changes, shifts. It's hyper local. Across the street could be worth more or less than the other side of the street. So while you can listen to other people, I think you got to take a lot of their advice to a grain of salt, because your circumstances will be different.
Right. Everybody's unique.
Everybody's unique.
And I was just talking to an attorney 2 days ago, and I asked her, okay, what's a normal day like? What's a normal? And she said there is no normal, because you're always dealing with two parties,
Mm-hmm.
the buyers and the sellers, and everybody is unique.
Right.
And so every transaction is going to have different aspects that make it different from the transaction before.
Right.
And she's been doing this for a long time, and she said that's something that when you're in it, the individuals don't recognize it, but every transaction is unique, and it's really based on you, the buyer, and the seller.
Right. Yeah. So, wow, it's great to listen to your mom and dad, whoever. That was a different time.
Yeah.
This is your experience. Take it and prepare yourself.
Right.
Be pre-approved, know the process, all the other points that we pointed out. But just be prepared. Your experience will be unique.
Right. I feel like that's a good conclusion.
Yeah,
There's a couple of things. I feel like the big points are to be organized, work with a mortgage broker
Yep.
that is local and that you are comfortable with, and manage the emotions and have your wants and needs. And if you can identify those and kind of hit those high points, your transaction will go as smoothly as it can go.
Absolutely. Be prepared. Be pre-qualified. Know what you can afford. Know what you're looking for. Those kind of things.
Pre-approved.
Be pre-approved.
Yeah.
And then my last thing with that was know the market.
Yep.
And understand, to Mark's point earlier, there's no such thing as a perfect home, perfect house.
Right.
I'm not telling you to settle. You can get most of what you're wanting, but
right.
go in with the proper mindset as well.
Right. And just on that last thing, the mindset is important.
Yes.
Because it is a competitive market, and so there are situations where we have multiple offers, and kind of managing the emotions is an important piece, because you will run into situations where, man, I thought that house looked amazing on paper, but when you get there, it's not. So that could be a bit of a letdown. And so you're going to run into those things, but it's your mindset, which is important.
Right.
I think that's
Absolutely.
a great point.
Absolutely.
Like having the right mindset, and that could be integral to making the process less onerous.
Yep. Okay.
So this was Talking Real Estate with Mark and Terry.
That was 4 or 5 tips for new home buyers.
I'm Mark Snipe from Coldwell Banker, HBW, and I can be reached at snipem@hbw.com.
And I'm Terry Carpenter with Coldwell Banker, Howard Perry in Walston. My number is 919-475-5002.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.